Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here I am again, and today I want to speak to you again. Some remarks on academic papers. This is now the second part. In the first part, I tried to convince you that your personal aim, combined with an academic paper, is, at least during your studies, to convince people that you are fully on the level of somebody who has learned the job. So that the contents must be on the level of an expert or of somebody who can be fully respected as somebody who is well trained and perfectly educated in the field and who knows about that topic, so that you are not allowed to leave any questions open there for yourself. You must work yourself deeply into the matter. And at the end, I also told you that you also have objective aims. And the objective aims is just to solve your problem. So to give the reader the truth about your topic. And now just think of detective stories, or what you have to promise in court. You have to take an oath that everything you say is the truth, nothing but the truth and the full truth. Yeah, sorry, this is just now an interruption. And I'm going to call that guy back later. So the full truth, that is what is necessary, and you have to give it to the reader. So certain requirements follow from that. First, leave everything aside and away which has nothing to do with your topic, which you don't need at the moment, because that would be a distraction. Concentrate on what you have to solve as a problem. The other requirements, or what you ever heard about academic style, footnotes, plagiarism, perhaps even too, follows only from that aim to find out the truth and give it to the reader. So that is what people sometimes don't really understand. All this academic shit has a sense, a purpose, a reason. So sometimes people take big manuals. Think about, do I have to place a full stop after a footnote or a comma or what else? And all this is details, rubbish, senseless. If you don't have always in your eye, or if you don't always look to the primary aim of the whole thing, that is to be sure that you talk and communicate the truth. So all the requirements of an academic paper can be understood from that primary aim. You must be able to find out the truth. And now, like in court or in a detective story, the truth is nothing without a proof. If you know the truth about a murder, that is very dangerous if you can't prove it to the police and in court. So you must be able to prove to yourself and to others that what you speak about is the truth. So that is the reason behind these nice footnotes or sources and references which you give, that your reader can check that what you tell them is true, that the facts can be checked, the conclusions can be followed up, that everything can be looked up, and that people see that you didn't make a mistake. By the way, these footnotes also have a very, very important function for yourself when you write a sentence. If you are forced to give a footnote for the statement which you make, for the facts which you think are true, then the thing with the footnote forces you to look up if you really are right. Um, well, just to confess here in public, I several times tried to write a paper and I wanted to write a sentence down, and then I looked for the footnote, for the source, and then I found out, oh, I got the whole thing wrong. If I see, uh, I look it up in my source, then I memorized the information there exactly the wrong way or not in the exact way. It made a difference. My whole idea was wrong, but since I forced myself to look for a footnote, I found my error before I could base wrong conclusions on it, and before I could give that statement to the public. So checking your statements and looking for footnotes, giving sources also has a highly important function to protect yourself against your errors. If you have to look everything up so that you can be sure that you are not wrong in that statement, then you prevent errors. Naturally, like in mathematics, you must give proof for everything which you say. You can't just take some statements from heaven. Huh? So it's not possible to write an academic paper where there is one source for one page. Absolutely impossible. In principle, every statement which you make, every fact, everything which you can't know on your own has to be proven. There are very, very rare exceptions. For example, if you refer to something which is completely accepted everywhere and widely known in the field. So what is general knowledge? So if you write, for example, about history, the sentence President Kennedy was murdered in 1963 does not need a footnote because that's absolutely accepted and everybody knows it. But when you now say his assassin was a single person, Lee Harvey Oswald, that is perhaps already a detail which not everybody knows, so it would be a great idea to look into sources there and to give an additional information where we can find that out, or if you then go on what had happened before or afterwards. You can't know this without a source, so you have to look into that and check it and present it to the reader. That is, by the way, even fair, because if you make an error or if there is a misunderstanding, then at least you give your reader the fair chance to find it out. So grave negative consequences from basing conclusions on wrong statements which you brought forward can be avoided. And so this is highly, highly important that you are able to prove everything. So in principle, an academic paper is a good academic paper if after every sentence probably you have a footnote. Sometimes people then say, well, but then I have a paper where half of the page is footnotes. And the answer is yes, why not? It is a service to the reader that you give proofs for everything. If somebody thinks, oh, that's an interesting information, I didn't know that before, or I want to check if that is if that is true, then people can look that up, and that must be. That is absolutely necessary. There are dissertations, so doctoral examination papers, where you have sometimes a third of the page or half of the page or 2/3 of the page, which are footnotes. Sometimes the topic requires that. Unfortunate, but simply necessary. Give proofs and information for everything. And the next thing is, you have heard that things like, I think, or personal things are not wanted in an academic paper. Yeah, perhaps. Why? Well, nobody is interested in your feelings. They are interested in the truth. So that is the reason why an objective style is preferred. Imagine I want to show you that something is the truth, the true solution of a complicated problem. Then my feelings, my emotions, or any emotional approach probably distracts you from the sheer problem. And so it makes a logical analysis more difficult, or it makes it more difficult for the reader to follow the logic of an analysis if I distract them by emotions and personal stories. So you are not a journalist if you write an academic paper. Entertaining people is not the decisive point, it is rather negative. I feel that this is the right solution. Nobody is interested in your feelings that something is the right solution. People want to know that it is the right solution. And that is a feeling, is not a proof. So say the right solution to your problem and then give the objective proofs and don't make a fuss about it. Huh? So that is the reason why they recommend you not to talk about I and we and blah blah. In the year of 2013, when we lay in the sun at Mallorca, I had an excellent idea about the true taxation or best taxation of a corporation. No, that's personal stuff and has nothing to do with the topic. That's a journalistic approach. Huh? And you know, journalists. Boris Johnson was a journalist. So that's everything what you have to say about the relationship between journalism and something which is serious. Good. By the way, there are also some German politicians who worked for a time as a journalist, and this is, yeah, just don't. Good. Now, if you will have to give the reader the truth, knowing the truth doesn't help because then it's senseless. The truth only has a positive effect if you can give it to the others. So if you can communicate that, that means you must tell the others the truth, naturally in a way which they can understand. Um, so you must give your reader a good understanding. Oh no, let's say it differently. You must make it possible for the reader to understand you without great efforts. So you will guide the reader to the conclusions in a way which is not manipulative, but in a way which is logical. You will furnish them with the information which they need to follow you. By the way, for this, you need an idea of who your reader is. Usually in an academic paper, the idea is the reader is somebody who is also familiar with the basics in the field. So if you write a paper on tax matters, then your idea is my reader is somebody who is familiar with all the basic knowledge which a tax expert or a tax advisor also has, but not with the details of my problem, because if that person were familiar with all your problem already, then your paper would be senseless for that person. Nobody reads a paper about an open question if for that person the open question is no longer an open question, but a trivial, self-evident thing. So you tell people all the necessary information which you need for your argumentation, nothing more. But you communicate, please, in an understandable way. Exact as is necessary, but don't try to imitate a complicated style or so. Yes, I know academic people sometimes write a complicated style, but that usually then follows from the problem. If they find out that their first idea to express something is wrong, then they afterwards try to make it more correct. And that is why sometimes people say things in a complicated way. Yeah? For example, you will often see that when you have first written a sentence, if you afterwards take that sentence literally, it is probably wrong or not perfectly true. And that is why afterwards you sharpen your sentence and change it in a way where it's more exact. One of my favorite examples is if you, for example, take this pen and let it fall down. Good, okay, now it fell more than it should. But if you then see this pen, to describe what happens, the first thing would be a pen falls down towards the center or to the center of the earth. That would be describing gravity. But if you then later think about what you said, that's not perfectly true. For example, that only happens if you are on the surface of the earth. If you live on the moon, that pen doesn't fall towards the center of the earth. Second, I just twice now said towards the center of the earth. The first attempt would probably say it falls down to the center of the earth, which is not true. Because when it comes to the floor of this building, the falling down stops. So it falls into the direction of the center of the earth. So towards would be correct, but to the center of the earth would be wrong. And this, ladies and gentlemen, that you see that perhaps if somebody really takes you for serious and believes in exactly what you said, that then perhaps a second approach is necessary to express more clearly what you want to say. That is the reason why academic sentences are sometimes complicated. Whenever you can say things in a clear way without running the risk of being misunderstood, then say it as simple as you can. So don't try to impress people by a complicated style. The complications just result from the problem. People are usually admired if they find for a complicated problem a really simple explanation. They are not admired for making things more complicated, which are not complicated. Yeah? That is usually that people don't think, okay, there's somebody trying to impress me in an artificial way, so evidently that person needs that, so that person is not worth respect. Good. Now, when you have the task to give the reader the truth, then you must communicate the information and your findings. That means communicate means you must make yourself understood. You must say things. What you have definitively to avoid is just to give hints and to describe things in a nebulous way without clearly saying what it's all about. So you are not allowed to leave things between the lines. You have to put them into the lines. That's very often a big problem if people have worked for 3 months or so on a topic. They regard certain things as so evident and so they are so familiar with it that in the end they are not able anymore to say the decisive things clearly. They just assume everybody knows that now. And the answer is no. Try to remember which things you regarded as new when you began to work on the problem. That is possibly something which also another reader does not yet know. So in cases of doubt, just tell the readers that. Good. Now, very often people try to, no, they don't try. They just have a problem with the question, what is about my own opinion? If I have to look for sources, books, and for every statement which I make, am I then allowed to bring forward an own opinion? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, lies in 2 principles. The first principle and rule is brutal. Nobody ever cares about your own damned opinion. Nobody is interested in what you think, so forget about your own opinion. The second thing is, well, there is a problem to be solved. And so people want to know what the solution is. And if there is not yet a solution in literature, then you have to find that solution. So you will have to form an own opinion. So principle number 2 is an academic paper without your own opinion is absolutely worthless. If you refuse to form an own opinion, you refuse to solve the problem. And that seems contradictory. First, nobody cares about your opinion. Second, everybody wants your opinion. And the riddle is solved once when you realized that, well, they don't want your opinion. They want the truth. So whenever your opinion is the truth, then people want to hear it. So you have to form an opinion, but only under the condition that this is the truth, so that it's objective, can be proven, that you can guarantee for that that it's true. Yeah? If you don't bring that forward, you are refusing to fulfill your task. Just to say, well, there are certain statements in literature, there is a problem, nobody answers to my problem, so I just bring some statements and then refuse to form a conclusion. That is refusing to fulfill your task. Your head is off. Principle number 2 is violated. Everybody wants to get the solution made by you, your opinion, but not because it's your opinion, because it's the truth, and if it's the truth, and only if it's the truth. Huh? So don't refuse to form an opinion, but make clear and make sure that your opinion is the true and only solution to that problem. Huh? So that is the decisive thing, and that is the solution of that seemingly contradictory set of two principles. Nobody wants your opinion, and yes, everybody needs desperately your opinion on an open problem, if it's not only your opinion. And then we come again to a matter of style. If it's not your opinion only, but if it's the objective, true solution to a problem, then naturally it's not necessary to say, I feel about the problem as follows, blah, blah, because then it's not a question of feelings, then it's just a question of logic, analysis, reasons. Naturally, then perhaps you cannot give footnotes for that conclusion because it's your own conclusion, but then you will bring forward your reasons in a logical way that people can see from your reasons and from the logic of the argumentation. Yes, this is the true solution of the problem. Logically, there is nothing else possible. So for 2 plus 2, you don't need the proof. That's just logic. So there one then finds out the value of an academic paper. Okay, that should be enough for today, because otherwise you probably fall down dead after hearing too long about my opinions on academic writing. We will go into details concerning the style of citation and other things in another short video later. And that should be enough for today. I thank you for listening if you listened. I thank you for not falling down dead if you were a bit bored. But on the other hand, as I promised, this is a boring channel. And yeah, hope to see you again soon on this channel. If you liked the video, share it with others whom you like. If you didn't like the video, share it with others whom you don't like and recommend it strongly to them, and enjoy the idea that they probably suffer like hell as you did. Okay, enough for today. I now go away, and this is the only and the last thing which I had to say. Good day.